Okay, my friend, if you've ever wondered why you're not further along, why you feel like you're doing all the things and somehow still not getting traction in the way that you hoped, there's a very good chance that it's not the big obvious behaviors that are holding you back. It's just the quiet ones, the subtle habits, the autopilot patterns, and those little small choices that feel very insignificant in the moment, but they compound over time and they keep you living the same life week after week, month after month, year after year on repeat. So today I want to shine a little torch on these things. Okay, not to judge yourself, okay, but to finally see something differently so you can choose something differently in the future. I love that quote. If you always do what you always did, you're always going to get what you always got. And awareness is always the first little crack that lets change in. So let's walk through this together. But first, obviously, a little bit of compassion. You didn't choose all the habits that you now have consciously. You didn't sit down and decide that you're going to hold yourself back in life. Okay, no one consciously chooses to play small. These patterns were formed for a reason during probably when you were in childhood, during seasons of survival, overwhelm, or self protection. And so, as you listen to me speak, I want you to stay really curious but not critical of yourself, because the goal is not to shame the patterns that you have, but to understand them so that you can shift them with self respect. So, the first little quiet behavior, the quiet habit that holds us back is thinking about change instead of actually making it. This is one of the most common things that hold people back is that you think about what you want. Okay, I want to get healthier. I want to lose weight. I want to start a business. I want to write a book. And so you think about how you'll do it. It sounds amazing. You research, you plan, and you watch others do it. It feels so productive. But it's actually just a loop, okay? Because thinking is not the problem. It's overthinking. Overthinking. When overthinking becomes something that replaces action, it's when you're only thinking. And so when you're staying mentally busy instead of actually physically moving, that is a problem because you're living in this idea of your life and not in the actual creation of it. So the second quiet little habit could be the reason why you're not moving forward and getting your goals is keeping your standards low because raising them higher feels very uncomfortable. So you don't ask more of yourself because you're scared that you're just not going to meet it. And so what do when you're worrying about the bar being set too high? You settle for just fine instead of aligned. You tolerate relationships or behaviors that you've outgrown. You keep it, it's almost like accepting crumbs of time for yourself and you avoid those small risks, just to avoid discomfort. So your standards aren't really staying low because you don't want more. They stay low because they'd require more of you, in order to expand, which feels very unvulnerable in that moment but you really can't create a new life with those old standards. You need to be willing to expand. You need to be willing to not just play small anymore. The next little quiet habit that often holds us back is waiting for the right time. Okay, so many people who do this. They tell themselves when things calm down, when the kids are older, when I have more time, when I feel more confident. But the truth is this, the right time isn't a date that ever arrives. There's no date in the calendar that says right moment. It's just a decision that you make. Life is never going to get lighter. All you need to do is get stronger. And the weight is costing you more than you realize. Another little habit that holds us back, okay? It's restarting rather than continuing. So this one is very sneaky. Every time you say, I'm going to start again on Monday, you reinforce the identity of someone who just starts but does not continue. And so restarting, of course, feels productive, feels amazing, a fresh slate, a new try. But it stops you from actually building the self-trust that you need to keep on going. Because consistency, it doesn't mean that you're never going to fall off. Of course, you're going to fall off. We all will stumble, but you got to keep on picking yourself back up again. You got to keep on choosing to return sooner without those dramatic pauses and all the beating yourself up in the head every time you fall down. Okay, pick yourself up quicker. The next little quiet habit that often holds us back is, this little soft quitting on yourself. Not giving up loudly and telling everyone I just gave up, but just quietly stepping back from the things that matter most to you. So you tell yourself, well, it's fine. I didn't really want that anyway. It's probably not meant to be, or meant for me, or it's not a big deal. But deep down, it was a big deal because it did matter to you. So soft quitting protects you from disappointment, but it also blocks you from ever feeling fulfilled in your life. Another little quiet habit that holds us back is only believing in yourself when you see results. Now, this is very backwards, but it's so common. You're waiting for the proof to come before you believe in yourself. And that means you're building your identity on outcomes, okay? Not choices or not your character, but results don't build belief. It's belief the belief is the thing that creates results. Just let me repeat that. Results don't create beliefs. The belief creates results. And only when you trust yourself if you're sitting there thinking, I want to trust myself once I'm successful, you're delaying your growth. Your belief has to come first, even if it is shaky. Another little quiet habit that holds us back is trying to change alone without support. There's so many strong people in this world who carry this belief that I have to do this all on my own. Okay, I can't get any help. And so you don't ask for support, you don't ask for accountability or guidance. You just, even if you need it, you just pretend you don't. But solitude really does slow growth. Support is a thing that expands capacity. Healing and growth don't, require you to be isolated. You're allowed to be held. You're allowed to be supported while you rise. And so none of these habits, if I've mentioned any, it's like, oh my gosh, like I do one or all of those things, they don't make you a failure. They just make you human. You've got a human brain, my friend. But once you see them, like that they exist, you get to choose differently. Because once you're aware of any pattern, it no longer runs on autopilot. You already have influence over it once you're aware of it. Awareness is the key to change. Awareness is the beginning of self-leadership. And so just a tiny little small shift that I want to offer you this week is choose one of the habits that I might have mentioned that resonated most with you. It's like, not all of them, just work on one. And ask yourself, what would it be like if I just interrupted that pattern just this week, just once, okay? You don't have to transform your entire life overnight. You just have to show your brain we're allowed to choose differently now. So if this has opened your eyes to a new way of doing things, I've created a free guide with 5 thought shifts that are going to allow you to break these cycles very gently, not through pressure, but through kindness and clarity and compassion. That's going to make change so much easier. And so if you're ready to start interrupting these old patterns and stepping into a life that you want, the link is waiting for you in the description. And so I just want you to know that these habits that keep you stuck aren't always going to be loud or obvious. They're quiet, they're familiar, they're comfortable. And that's why they often go unnoticed. But now that I've probably called them all out, now that you might even see them in your own life, you're already changing because you have that awareness. So if that has resonated with you, everything I've shared, tell me in the comments what is one quiet habit that you are wanting and willing and ready to interrupt first. I am always cheering you on, just one very gentle, powerful shift at a time, my friend.